Hello and welcome to our Buckeye Roundtable as we break down the second-ranked Ohio State football team in their game with fifth-ranked Notre Dame. Hello, everyone. I'm Dom Tiberi, joined by our Dave Holmes and Adam King from 10 TV. And, of course, we have the one and only Timmy Hall and former Ohio State football player DeVere Posey from 97.1 The Fan. Dave Holmes, let me ask you this. I know that you study the lines. I know you're an insider at Vegas.com. 17.5 point favorites, Ohio State. And it's a top 5 matchup.
Wow. Got my skin crawling. I already feel like I want some action. You're trying to talk gambling?
Is it January already?
It's not January 1st, Tom. This isn't legal. Okay, so
does that sound right?
Yeah, 17.5. Yeah, it probably is, honestly. It honestly is a good line. It started lower. The public generally bets the Buckeyes, but I do think it's right because if both teams play at their ceiling, Ohio State is a 2-touchdown team better than Notre Dame. So, yeah, when I look at final scores, I think if both teams play well, it's 42-24, it's 35-17, and those scores are about in that range. So it feels disrespectful to Notre Dame, but if Ohio State plays at their ceiling, they are that much better.
All right, DeVere, let me say this first. I really like Marcus Freeman. I enjoyed covering him at Ohio State, and I wish him nothing but the best at Notre Dame. But he is a great actor. First of all, when he said, we're 17.5 point underdog, I did not know that. I don't buy that. and he says he's going to use it as bulletin board material motivation. As a former player, when you were, I'm not sure, at some point in your career, sometime you were an underdog. How did that affect you, and did you even care? Because, you know, we talk about lines and stuff. All Vegas is doing is setting the line, trying to get even betting. They're just trying to win at the end of the day. They don't really have a dog in the fight.
I don't think the kids necessarily know about the lines in Vegas, but I think Marcus Freeman is trying to block off all the outside noise and just come in and play mistake-free football and sort of saying, oh, I don't know what the lines are. Classic media line. But I know Freeman, I know James. They know what they're walking into, and they have those guys hyped up with all type of bulletin board material, and I look forward to seeing those guys on Saturday.
Are they saying things to him like, hey, you know, right now Ohio State, they don't think you belong here, that they, you know, they're laughing? I mean, are they doing stuff like that to motivate them?
Yeah, I think so too, and I think they're pumping the narrative of mistake-free football just because they know that they have injuries. They also know that this is a first-time starter in their quarterback, and they know they can't come into Ohio State jumping off sides, having penalties, and doing things that obviously work against what their team is trying to do each series.
All right, Adam, I know what my opinion is to this. I'm going to ask you, is this the biggest opener in Ohio State history? And I will say, you know, they've played a lot of openers in Ohio State, 130-plus years. And this is the first time ever 2 top 5 teams meet. I think it's the biggest opener, but I've had people, and Timmy May even kind of said, I don't know, is it the biggest opener?
Well, Tim May's wrong. I mean, we've seen that before. Of course it is. It's a top 5 matchup, and not only is it a top 5 matchup, it's Ohio State and Notre Dame. I think if it was a top 5 matchup and it was Ohio State and Georgia, yeah, it's still a big game, but the pedigree that comes with the Buckeyes and the Fighting Irish opening the season, I don't think there's been a bigger opener for Ohio State. And then on the field, you're talking about 2 teams that very well, if they didn't play this year, could win out and meet in the playoff, meet in the national championship game, that now are going to figure it out in week 1. And there's no prep. There's no FCS team that Ohio State gets to line up and beat 70-0 to figure things out. They've got to go out of the gate, first quarter, 7:30 kick.
The only thing I'll say to Timmy's defense, guys, is that, you know, he even said, I don't know who voted. I mean, the voters decided that Notre Dame was a top 5 team. Exactly. Are they really a top 5? And Tim brought up the game in the 80s when I think it was 6th ranked Ohio State took on, I think they were 2nd ranked Alabama. That was a big game. But I mean, you know, the
only people who love Notre Dame more than the pollsters are the people who do recruiting rankings, Dom. They get the benefit of the doubt all the time based on the brand. I think they're a top 10 or 15 team. I don't think they're necessarily a top 5 team. There you go, Marcus, some more bulletin board material.
Now, I will say this. Who would you rank 5th? That's the thing. I mean, their name gets them up to number 5 because there's nobody to put there.
Well, let's not get sidetracked because my main debate would be there should be no preseason poll and we shouldn't have a poll until about week 5 or 6. But
that's fair.
That's my personal take on polls.
Timmy, you're a man that deals with pressure every day of your life. Yeah. I hear you talk about all the roadblocks you deal with in your life. With that said, because you're an authority on pressure, who has more pressure to win this game? Ryan Day and Ohio State or Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame? And we are talking about two powder keg programs. And this is not, it's big. It's important to win at Ohio State. But, hey, Notre Dame, that's not the sisters of the poor there either.
Well, I mean, guys, to look at pressure, you got to look at what the expectations are. I'm not going to say like there's zero expectations for Notre Dame to get the job done, but just, I mean, imagine, I'm trying to wrap my mind around what it would be like in the college football world if Marcus Freeman walked into his very first game and won it against Ohio State with, like we just discussed, it's a 17.5-point favorite. The only thing I kept writing down, and I'm not one of those guys to go with the Ohio State wins by 45 guys in their first game of the season, especially when it's against.
I know a guy.
Yeah, I know. They're around. But what I'm saying though is, any way you slice it, Bucks win is the thing that I wrote down to myself. Any way you slice it, they win. I don't know if that's quite going to be by 10 or by 14. Do they cover the spread at 17.5? But they get the job done because they're a better football team. And yes, Ryan Day has got much more on his plate. I mean, I was reading an article recently that talked about, for the first time you lose that game to the team up north, he's getting heckled in the grocery store. It's not 100% anymore in this town where it's probably 95% still, but it's not 100% where guys are coming up to you and saying, "Oh, let's get the picture." It's what was wrong with the fronts in that Michigan game? Yeah. What was wrong with the O-line and the D-line in that Michigan game?
You've got to stop heckling Ryan Day. You've got to stop.
I got a love for it.
It's on Ryan Day. The expectation, the pressure's on Ryan Day.
All right, we're going to start with you. Who wins and why? You can give a score if you like, but who wins and why?
Ohio State wins because, as I said, they're a better football team. We can start with quarterbacks, right? Buckner, guy might be a load, might be a little bit of a wild card with how he runs for Notre Dame, but this is his first season taking over as a starter in college football, and it's a heck of a contest to roll into. CJ Stroud, we are already starting to have discussions of could this guy catch JT Barrett this year if he goes for a 60 spot like Joe Burrow was capable of at LSU. CJ Stroud, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, a retooled offensive line, an exciting new defense that scheme-wise will look a little similar to Notre Dame's. They got the Jack, Notre Dame's got the Viper, but I'm excited to see a 2 million.
You got a score?
I'm going to go 37-20.
Okay.
How do you like that? 17-point win for the Buckeyes.
How do you see it, Devere?
I see it because the Buckeyes make the improvements on defense. With this 4-2-5 defense, obviously these DBs pumping off of the film and just absolutely having a great camp. The defensive line bringing the energy, and the reason why they get to bring the energy, guys, is because they're doing twists, they're doing flips, and they get to attack the quarterback. Jim Knowles finished number 3 in the country last year with his defense, and I think he brings that energy to Ohio State. And obviously with a new quarterback, them being hurt at running back, I think Notre Dame rolls in with a lot of 2 tight end sets, trying to run the ball 30 times. And I see that going against a new Ohio State defense that stifles them. We win because of defense.
You got a score?
Yeah, I don't think they scored 20 points. I'm going with 19-38. We cover.
38-19, Ohio State. David.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's better all across the board. I think Jim Knowles got a team to play defense in Oklahoma State in a conference where defense isn't required as community service. So, I mean, if you could get defense in the Big 12 and now you have better personnel, I think they're going to be better. I'm going to go 42-24, Ohio State.
Well, I said before the roundtable, you stole my points, but I'm going to take one off the board. I say they kick 2 field goals, 41-24.
Wow.
I think Ohio State gets the win.
Well,
I think
it's just like the price is right.
It is. Well, you went above me.
Okay.
You went above me. No, I just think they're
amazed we all picked Ohio State.
Now, hold on.
Timmy, did you pick that tie out this morning or just randomly?
You gave it to me. I had to wear it.
Timmy, we haven't all taken Ohio State. There's still one guy left.
Let me just say this. Let me just say this. So
72-3.
And you might want to get a double screen because Timmy will, he'll get this face like, oh my God,
Here it comes.
Hey, Ohio State's offense is for real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the only hope, in my opinion, Notre Dame's defense is what could keep them in this game, but I just don't see it. Mm-hmm. I pick your poison. How are you going to stop Ohio State?
Yeah.
I think the Buckeyes could easily put 50 points up on the board.
By halftime.
But I'm taking Ohio State 49-17.
That is 49-17.
That's a little low, Dom.
That's conservative for you.
Yeah.
I just think
What do you think what do you think they do wrong?
I think if Ohio State, I think Ohio State wants to make a statement in this game. I think they have been on a slow burn ever since that game up north when they're not physical, they're not this, and I think hell is going to be unleashed Saturday night. At least that's what Ryan Day wants to do. He wants to unleash it and make a statement.
The Hellfire Club.
Weirder things happen. Injuries are the great equalizer and everything. But I think if Ohio State can put the pedal to the metal, it's going to be like Urban in his last game in the shoe. It would be like that against Michigan. That's what they would. Now, that doesn't mean it happens, but I think that's what they'd like to.
I give you credit.
Guys.
I like that.
Huh?
I like the last game against Michigan with Urban. I think that's possible.
Yeah. All right, guys, great stuff. Keep it on 10 TV, 97.1 The Fan for all your Buckeye football needs. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Buckeye Roundtables. We break down the second-ranked Ohio State football team and their big game, that night game with fifth-ranked Notre Dame. Hello, everyone. I'm Dom Tiberi, and we are joined by our Dave Holmes and Adam King of 10 TV, along with Timmy Hall and former Ohio State football player DeVere Posey. Timmy, Notre Dame is coached by a former Buckeye, Marcus Freeman, who played linebacker. He also brought along with him his best friend, and James Laurinaitis.
Yeah.
How weird will it be for those two guys when they come out on the field Saturday and they're trying to beat the team that they grew up loving, that they played for? And Timmy, I've heard some people saying some stuff, how hard. It ain't going to be hard. They want to beat Ohio State. They want to make it a long night for Ohio State, right?
Yeah, of course they do. I mean, and I'll be curious to hear DeVere's take on this too, because I live in this fantasy world where I try to get in the minds of these players and wonder what that could be like, because it is, to me, one of the more fascinating storylines. I mean, you've got the fact that Marcus Freeman is the head coach at Notre Dame at this young age. What an incredible job. It's why it was so curious to hear him try to nitpick at, was I happiest going to Ohio State, or I sure wish I would have gone to Notre Dame back then? Because I'm a big believer that every step Marcus Freeman took in his life, it had to happen this same way for him to become the head coach of Notre Dame football. And that's incredible. And then for James, who, let's be honest, I mean, this guy is one of the best college football players of all time. He is on a fast track to becoming not just a graduate assistant. It's kind of crazy to think of James Laurinaitis as only a grad assistant, but he's out there hands-on, helping their defense, showing them how to tackle. So I think it's an incredible storyline. If it were me, I would have tons of emotions if I were either of those guys, spending a lot of my, youth, my college years, the best years in our lives, right? And then to go back in there as the opponent, man, that would be something.
And you know what? They keep saying, oh, James is just a GA. Not on this game. On this game, he's got his fingers. He
could be the defensive coordinator for all I care. Yeah. I mean, he's James Laurinaitis, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Adam, as a coach, you're always looking for an advantage. And the advantage here, I would think, that Marcus is trying to use is Al Washington Jr. Last 2-3 years was on the staff at Ohio State. Now he's at Notre Dame. How big of a deal is that?
Well, I'm just going to adjust my chair.
Yeah, when you do that, I'm like, I look down.
Hopefully Notre Dame's defense
I
like that chair.
Sit down here. So Al Washington played, coach for the Buckeyes the last couple seasons, and they asked Ryan Day about that. How worried are you about signals and all of that? I think in most years you'd be a little worried. I mean, that's somebody who's seen the inside scope of your defense. But the good thing is this is a brand new defense. Everything about this defense is new. I don't think Al Washington will know much more than you or I would from watching Jim Knowles' film. Now, if it hadn't been Knowles there'd be a concern. Obviously, he has a feel for the program. He has a feel for, what this defense wants to do overarching, but that's nothing that you can't get from just talking with the defense. They want to play fast. They want to, hit hard. They want to be physical. But I don't think that, maybe they have to change a couple signs from plays that have stuck around for the last 5 years. But really, with this brand new defense, I can't imagine it hurts them that much.
All right, DeVere, I think we can agree the strength of this Notre Dame football team would be their defense. Marcus Freeman is a defensive guy. James Laurinaitis, defensive guy. Al Washington, defensive guy. With that said, Is that really the biggest chance Notre Dame has in this game to try and win this game with their defense? Can the defense be the difference? And can the defense, do they have enough in the tank to slow down this high-powered Ohio State offense? Is that what they're thinking?
Honestly, Dom, I think they have no chance. And I'm not trying to, pump up the Buckeyes, but I believe we're looking at, and we're going to get our first glimpse at the #1 offense in the country. Obviously, a potential Heisman, potential first-round pick, potential Biletnikoff winner, potential All-Big Ten receiver with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trevion Henderson, holding up to Doak Walker later this year. I believe their best chance is time of possession, and maybe still in a possession with special teams. I honestly expect a trick play.
Well, their defense is, Notre Dame's is, bend, don't break. That's their whole philosophy.
Yes, they will be broken. And it's just because C.J. Stroud's ability to grow this summer under Jim Knowles' defense now, Jim Knowles doesn't just stand back and let you come at it. He has an aggressive defense where the safeties are moving, the D-line they're doing stunts, and just being able to read and make it a numbers game. C.J. Stroud took some strides this year, and I just believe that ability will be able to be on display on Saturday and throw what you want at that guy. I just believe, he'll make do.
I do like the insight, Dave, he just gave because, they've talked about it all camp, how they were going up against this defense and Jim Knowles' defense. And you would think, the old joke was when Woody was here, the best games were played in practice. And, you look at these two offense and defense and they're going up against each other. I would think that would make them better. But my question for you is how angry is this Ohio State defense? Because really, they're the ones that had to hear that they were pushed around, that they're not physical, that they couldn't stop Michigan. And forget about Oregon, folks. Oregon got lucky on one day. But we saw their true colors at the end. What I'm talking about is Michigan really manhandled Ohio State and their defense. And those kids have had to live with that. And that's hard to live with in Columbus, Ohio. That happened, and then for that team up there to run their mouth, and DeVere knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. That is motivation. Thank you, Jim Harbaugh, and whatever, because these guys are going to be. I would think the defense is going to want to just bring it on Saturday.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack from that filibuster. I'm going to start with Oregon. I will forgive but not forget because I think that was relevant. They pushed them around the same way Michigan pushed them around. And who's really lucky that C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigba went all world in the Rose Bowl is that Ohio State defense, which got beat up decently. Now, they were much better in the second half. But then they also started a tight end and a running back and linebacker, but that's neither here nor there. So I think they're better personnel-wise this year. But you're right. I mean, they've heard that they were soft and they weren't tough enough. I mean, this is gut check time. You got a new coordinator. You have another year of experience. The excuses are done. I mean, you cannot be that defense. And you don't have to be top 5 like Jim Knowles says or top 10 like Ryan Day wants. You can be top 30. And that's going to get you in the national championship picture.
That's it?
You don't have to be elite with this offense.
You don't agree?
You don't have to be elite.
I don't agree that
they can
a bar should even be close to that.
No.
The money.
He's saying that they could do that and still win.
Thank you, Adam.
And I completely agree.
I'm not disputing that.
I did. My chair might not be tall, but I can still hear.
I did listen.
I didn't say what the bar is. I said what they need. If they're top 30, that's good enough. Now, they should be better given the personnel with JTD and Jack Sawyer and Zach Harrison. They should be top 10 to 15.
Do you think they will be?
I think they will be. Yeah, I think they will be. They don't need to be, is my point. So if they're just marginally better, that's going to be good enough. And if they're a lot better, then they're the best team in the country.
And by goodness, as we're sitting here, if we're going to talk about filibusters, this gentleman right here actually put on the scarlet and gray.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't want to hear that team up north running their mouth, and that's motivation, isn't it? That's my point.
I don't even know what's going on up there. He said he made a decision with his quarterback, and he doesn't. Who knows what's going on? Then he said it was a biblical decision.
Oh, biblical.
Yeah, we'll leave that later for this year.
They ran their mouths. That's
Tavir,
right.
I heard you were born on third base.
Who, me?
Oh,
man.
I promise you this much.
What base were you born on?
Mark this down, Timmy Hall. They're not playing this year's Ohio State-Michigan game on third base. It's in the shoe, okay? But that's that's neither here nor there. Sorry about the filibuster. I feel like I'm next to two senators.
The disrespect to Oregon,
No,
too.
I've never met someone who hates Oregon as much as this man.
Come on, they gave us Nike. Don't you like them a little bit?
The Lucky
Uniforms?
Ducks.
Yeah, he can't stand the Ducks.
I
Can't stand
like
the
that
Ducks.
one, Adam.
Guys, great stuff, and keep it on 10 TV 97.1 The Fan for all your Buckeye football needs. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Buckeye Roundtable as we break down the second-ranked Ohio State football team in that big game with fifth-ranked Notre Dame. I'm Dom Tiberi, joined by our Dave Holmes and Adam King of 10 TV, along with former Ohio State football player DeVere Posey and Temmie Hall from 97.1 The Fan. Dave, how much pressure do you think there is on the Ohio State offense and Ryan Day, because that's his baby? It looks to be loaded. Expectations, by the way, guys, is through the roof. Forget about the fans. That's from Ryan Day and the players themselves. They've been talking about everything they expect. Is the hype for real, do you think?
Well, it's for real. Now, the pressure and the expectations off the chart, because last year they had one marquee non-conference home game against Oregon and laid an egg defensively, lost the game. They lose to Michigan, up there, got pushed around. Rose Bowl, they were able to salvage because of a Herculean effort by a quarterback and a receiver. But still, that's 1-2 in their last three big games. This one is certainly bigger than some of those. So if they lose this game, yeah, I would not want to be Ohio State and drop this game as the opener. So the pressure is off the charts. Now, are they for real? Yeah. Yeah, they're for real. They're the best offense in America. Stroud is off the charts good. Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best receiver in the country. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be that dude as soon as Jackson walks out the door. So they're loaded. Travion Henderson might be the most talented running back. I know some folks down in Texas might disagree with that, but he's certainly top three. So they're loaded, and they're so good that they can probably turn the ball over once or twice this game and still win the game. As long as they don't absolutely fold in on themselves, they're going to win this game. But as we've seen, you can lose a game like Oregon if you make bad play after bad play.
Well, the Ducks got lucky on that one. But
that's Dom's take.
DeVere, it all starts, and I don't care, I think it's funny. I don't care if it's grade school, high school, college, NFL. Every offense is built around the quarterback.
Yes.
And the quarterback is the most important position on the field. You live and die with your quarterback. With that said, how much comfort does Ryan Day take that he has a guy back for a second year and, is a national championship run clearly on Stroud's shoulders? Is this whole season on his shoulders?
I mean, obviously it is. I mean, you have to protect this guy with the offensive line. You have to be able to pick up blitzes with Travion Henderson. The tight ends have to do their job in protection as well. And the receivers have to catch the ball. I don't think this kid has any issues with finding the right guys, taking the right reads. I think what we're looking at now is preventing injury and just making sure he stays upright. Anytime he can stay upright and deliver the ball, he's going to get there at a pro level.
Adam, with that said, and DeVere brought up the O-line, to me, quarterback's the most important thing, and then to me, the next important thing is the O-line. They got a new O-line coach. They've made some changes. But we've heard the players talking about this being a special season, making a run for the national title. We heard Jackson say, hey, we are here to play for natties. How important, though, is it when you hear that stuff to keep it all in check, to keep the blinders on? Because the only thing that matters right now is you better beat Notre Dame or none of that other stuff will matter.
I mean, it's really important, but it's impossible at this point. I mean, it's 2022. Every time you open your phone, you're going to have a new take on who's going to win the national title. And the Buckeyes are seeing it. I mean, there's a number that shows up next to their name when they play on Saturday night. And when you're the number 2 team in the country, that means that everybody in the country expects you to play for the national championship. And I think that's okay. And Ryan Day has said many times, you come here for the pressure of winning a national championship. Otherwise, go somewhere else. And this year, I think more than any other year, remove 2015 or a year coming off a championship, has the most hype of an Ohio State team we've ever seen. I mean, there is not a person that isn't picking the Buckeyes, and if they are, they've got them at least in the national championship. They've got Stroud raising the Heisman or sitting right there with Bryce Young. This Buckeye team 100% has every expectation for the reason you named. They have the best running back room. They have the best wide receiver room. They have arguably the best quarterback. And all they need is this defense to figure some things out, to just show a little bit of being those silver bullets again. And I think it's okay they know the expectation, because I think when you know the expectation, you know the goal, and you're able to go chase it.
Tim Hall doubts this. I mean, he says the defense has to be the 85 Bears, or else they're not going to go 6-6. They'll go 6 unless they're the 85 Bears. That's Tim Hall's.
That's some good sports talk stuff. And now you're doing it.
Here's what I'll say about Timmy, and I'm going to Timmy because I've said, and it's well documented, he is an expert on pressure. Timmy has already said that his whole thing is to get into the psyche of the coaches and try to figure out, and he is a student of the game. He is a psychologist of the game. You actually played the game and understand what it takes. Timmy, on the other hand, has lived in the minds of these guys. Yeah. Tim, that's why I want to ask you this. What is keeping Ryan Day up at night? He has a veteran team in a lot of ways. He has a veteran quarterback coming back. He has some new skilled players. Injuries are always the great equalizer when it comes to sport. Many of the pundits, though, are picking Ohio State to win the national championship, and I will say that I did pick them. Now, I know you can yell at me, but I got to pick someone, and I think it is Ohio State this year. It is not easy, though, Tim, and I think we can agree, as you've studied the game, to win at this level. How does Ryan Day block all that out, and what is going through his mind when you climb in there?
It's the job. You know, I mean, these guys have said it here in this roundtable. You're the head coach at Ohio State. It was his introductory press conference when he had a couple of games under his belt. We know when Urban Meyer had his thing, but he said, beat the team up north. He said you win the rivalry game, and then you win every game after that. Like, he understands the pressure that comes with this. And, you know, I don't really have sympathy for guys in these positions because it's just a club that keeps going around and around. Even guys that lose their jobs, there's a $1 million salary a month later. But I'm not thinking about that with Ryan Day. He's making, $9 or $10 million a year to deal with pressure and to compartmentalize things. And then he has shown us that he can go out there and function as a head coach and get the job done. We're talking about a couple of slip-ups. In his whole entire time as a head coach, he's lost one Big Ten game. These things are incredible. The way Urban's run started, not even getting to double-digit losses in his tenure, and the way it's rolled over with Ryan Day's beginnings, he's accomplished everything you can accomplish as a head coach. He just has to win a national championship now. So however long he's here, I don't know if it's this year, but Dom, it's national championship or bust. They're in that position right now. Yep. It's just we got to win the title now.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. Last thing, I'm going to start with you, Tim, and we're going to look. And I know this is. We can talk about it. We don't want the players listening to this or talking to it. I'm just going to ask you, and it's a simple yes or no. And if it's no, why? Does Ohio State play for a national championship this year?
I'm going to put them in the game. Yeah, if you're not backing me into a corner and asking me to pick the national championship game because we've got dogs like Alabama.
So you got them in Alabama, probably.
It's going to be possibly Alabama. I mean, until
I'll do it. Timmy, who's going to win the national championship?
I'm not going to say it just yet.
Okay,
I'm not answering
but you have Ohio State there.
I'm going to put Ohio State in the title game.
Who do you have? Does Ohio State make the title game?
I see Ohio State beating Utah to get to the national championship game. And I see us in a close one, edging Alabama, just because I think C.J. Stroud believes he's the best player in the country. The pros are taking him over Bryce Young. I think we get it done.
Dave, does the Buckeyes make it to the title game?
Yeah, so I'm going to actually go full-blown to Barry here and say they're the biggest lock to get to the championship game. I'm more confident in Ohio State getting there. Now, I don't know about winning. We see the matchup. But I'm more confident in them getting there than Alabama because of the uncertainty of Georgia and some of the SEC stuff. But I think Ohio State is the greatest statistical lock to be playing in the championship.
I think that's a good point. I mean, I think Ohio State could lose their opener if it happens and still very well
if
find
they
themselves.
Run out, they're okay.
Yeah, and find themselves in the. I mean, all they had to do last year was beat Michigan, and they're probably back in the playoff. Yep. I 100% think they're in the championship, and I think they meet an old foe. I think Clemson gets things figured out this year, and I think they see them back there in the championship. And I think the Buckeyes do raise the trophy this year. I think they're the best team in the country. And I think they're going to prove it on defense this year. I think they're going to be one of the best teams on defense.
You've trained them well.
No,
I mean, now there are years where
you've trained them
the
well.
Buckeyes are predicted to be 10th, and Dom will pick them to win it.
Please get to the title game so we can do this again.
All I hope is that Ryan Day is keeping all his players away from this. But, yes, I do have Ohio State winning it all. But let me just say folks, a lot has to happen. They got to take care of business on Saturday. They got to stay healthy. They got to stay humble. And I still go back to what Woody said. If someone comes up and tells you how good you are, you kick them in the shins. Unless now, because everyone's living longer, unless they're a 90-year-old woman, because they're just trying to make you soft. But the potential's there for this football team to make a
80-year-old women are in
Dom DeBerry, pro kicking 89-year-old women.
90, I said.
Yeah, but what about the 89-year-old women?
Well, people are living longer. All right, great stuff. Thanks for watching. Keep it on 10 TV 97.1 The Fan for all your Buckeye football needs.